Uncle Albert Holt, would you possibly be able to shed some light for viewers on what it was like growing up in Cherbourg in the 1930s?
Well, Cherbourg, to me, has really bad memories of my growing up there. And the fact was that, we all experienced third world living conditions. A lot of poverty, absolute abject poverty. The fact was that we were controlled. We were controlled because my level of education was only to fourth grade, and then that's equivalent to what my grandchildren get in preschool these days. And then we were sent out to work and that sort of thing. But the control they had over us was, justified by the fact that we couldn't be educated. And to me, when my brains started to function, I realised the difference with the community of Cherbourg as opposed to the township 3 miles away of Megan. Megan had all the infrastructure that a town really needs to be viable. And one of the things about that is Megan was out of bounds to us unless we got written permission to go into the town. And I clearly remember that, it was a daunting thing for us, even with permission. Like you had to go down to the office and front up to a clerk and more or less beg for permission. If you was granted that permission, what they used to do was calculate that it took us an hour. We had no transport. It was all on Shanks's pony. We had to walk, and they used to allow an hour to walk in. It was 3 miles, 5 kilometres into town, and an hour to walk back. So that was 2 hours, and then possibly 10 minutes to do our business in there. And I'll never forget, how daunting it was, how terrifying it was. One was that you had to make sure you got back before that permit expired. If you didn't, it was zero tolerance if you was outside of that guideline, that time frame. Well, if you was a kid, you'd get a public whipping, and if you was an adult, you get thrown in jail for 3 weeks. It was horrific. But what I remember my experiences with going into a store, and my thinking about when you've got money and you're in the business of making money. You'd go in and they'd be only too pleased to take your money, but in our case, it wasn't. We'd get there and we had to wait at the back of the queue. We could never go to the front of the queue, and if we were there ready to be served and some white person walked in, that storekeeper would say, "Your place is at the back of the queue." I'll give you some idea how I felt about that. And this is me, and I portrayed myself as an animal that was getting ill-treated. And I imagine myself as a mongrel dog that, if it does something wrong, and I've seen them mistreated because, people have kicked them in the ribs and hit them, and the first thing that ill-treated animal, that ill-treated dog does is it looks for sanctuary. And, you know, you know, what happens then is that they slink away with their tails, you know, between their hind legs, and they look for a recluse. And I was in that same position where I looked for a recluse, and that recluse was that, you know, if I walked out in the street, I'd like to see a big black hole, you know, a cave there where I could go in and hide. But on top of that, then, you know, you had the added pressure where they said, well, you know, your place is at the back of the queue, and that put tremendous pressure on that time frame. So, you know, and as I said, you know, if you was outside of that time frame, you got punished, men and you know, children. The other thing about that was, you know, we were denied access to basic medical service. Certainly there was no legal service. And what the authorities used to always threaten us with was, you know, if we rebelled against the system, they just closed the place down and we had no place to go to. You know, that threat was always there. But the regimental things they done to us was, you know, when I left school after 4th grade, you were immediately put into the workforce. And they had a system there where bells, you know, you'd be governed by bells and whistles. They had curfews and all that sort of thing. So Monday to Friday used to be everybody had to work, and there'd be a whistle going at, the first one would go at 7:45, and that gave you 15 minutes to get to an assembly point, and that assembly point used to be at the office. And then when that second whistle went, you had to be punctual, you know. You couldn't be late, you had to be there. There was a bloke came out, and he had a book that he had all male people that were working on the mission in that book. And there was a couple of things we had to do. First of all, he'd call us to attention, and then we had to swear our allegiance to the King of England, and then we had to salute their flag. And you know, where I felt really bad, like before, you know, I was in the workforce, and they had white kids there, and I tell people I went to a unique school, and when they were switched on to listen, I said, yeah, you know, I said I went to school with all black kids, no white kids. I said certainly there were white kids there, but we were separated, we were segregated. And you know, I said one of the things that'll haunt me for the rest of my life is that we had to feel inferior. We had to feel inferior to white kids. And they used to get us to wait at the assembly point there where the bus used to pick these white kids up and take them into town. And they had access to senior level of education. No restrictions, they could go right through to 12th grade. And in that process, what they used to do with us black kids, they used to make us wait at the assembly point where the white kids got on the bus. Three things we had to do. I'll never forget them. The first was we couldn't look at them, and you know, you could see them jeering as they were coming. And the other thing was we couldn't talk to them. And